The animal nature in us. It makes some of us born to sin. It makes some of us born to win. The materialism that comes creates a scenario where it's too grim. Our lives and the foundations often become too dim. The animal nature operates in cycles. Humans operate in a linear-based time, which makes our own bodies stifled. And with this, I present you my video. So that was just a little, I ain't no poet, but I thought let me write a couple lines just to see it, because I like experimenting. So let me know what you guys think about that. Anyway, are we animals with just consciousness, or more of a soul, if you will? Or is it just cope that's kind of created with our own intelligence? And what can we learn from essentially the animalistic nature that lives within all of us? Because I mean, if you look at a lot of animals, not all of them by the way, but we can learn a thing or two from them. A lot of animals live in harmony, yet humans have always lived in chaos. Why is this? Like you look at a lot of bees or ants or even just different animals within the sort of animal kingdom, and they be getting along really well, but humans don't. So I think somewhere along the lines of, the boost in intelligence, the IQ sort of stats that we have, we kind of lost touch with nature, with the rhythm and the cycles that exist within life, because we're so tapped out, and animals, they're so tapped in. And maybe ignorance is bliss. Maybe having the extra intelligence just makes life even more disconnected. So if you're someone who goes through more mental struggle than others, or at least if you view yourself living like that, then you probably are smarter than the average animal or human, right? But to be honest, I think that the main sort of cause, apart from, the increased intelligence, is just how we live in a very linear structure. You've got 9 to 5 jobs, you've got school schedules, you've got endless hustle, and we base everything on time. Now, if time is a man-made construct, how well does it fit in with our own biological nature? And again, I'm not a scientist, but you can go ahead and study this if you want. A lot of the things we do in society today doesn't seem like it's right for our biological system. And maybe it's just a feeling, but even if you look at something like the circadian rhythm, which is basically following your lifestyle according to the sun and moon, all the animals do that stuff. Yet a lot of us, including myself, are pretty nocturnal. Now again, there's room for debate on that side of things, because some people have just, I guess you could say, work better at night or are used to the nighttime. But in terms of, like living quote unquote healthy, it's argued that again, following the sort of sunrise is going to be the best for you. But a lot of modern life has kind of made us forget what we once knew, back in the days. And I don't want to go Liver King on anyone, because, that guy was just a marketing ploy. Very well, I must say. But I think we should still kind of embrace the sort of part of nature that we were once in, rather than separate from it entirely. And I ain't saying this means you have to go barefoot in the jungle and go ahead and just hunt some snakes or some animals. I'm just saying, like, pretty basic stuff when it comes to understanding yourself, and that self-awareness can kind of come from being more natural. And by natural, I mean in nature. And even when it comes to the actions of a lot of animals as well. I mean, I don't know. I saw a few animal videos online, just like everyone else when they're bored. But it doesn't seem like animals tend to overthink much. They kind of just have this knowing when it's time to do stuff. Like a lion just chills, and then when it's hungry, it eats. And they trust their instincts so well. And you know what humans don't? And I find that crazy, because why do we constantly doubt ourselves? And again, it brings me back to the point of that intelligence buff that we have. Ignorance is bliss, whereas we don't have that. And another good point actually is pretty much that they adapt to a lot of seasons, whilst we don't. Because we operate so linear, we expect to do the same things in winter, in summer, and in spring. But it's like if you look at a lot of these animals, they take more time to rest in winter. They eat probably slightly different in winter compared to summer, but for us, everything has to be exactly the same. And whilst it might not have a direct effect on us in terms of how we eat, but I think we can take a thing or two from that. Like in winter, it would make more sense to kind of bulk up, right? Or eat things that are kind of local to us that grow at that time of year. I don't know, just some food for thought. Quite literally, pun intended, by the way. Because like even if you look at a lot of the sort of like mindfulness, for example, right? Or a lot of these sort of basic mental health advice, it's usually stuff like walking, exercising, eating healthier, which is like more natural based foods, all of that stuff, right? And what is that? That's all nature. That's all natural stuff. And it's more tied into the sort of natural rhythms that we should all be, I guess, kind of following to some extent. It's just really hard to navigate because having a modern world like we live in today and having the really, really old sort of past life experience, it's hard to find balance. Because I feel like a lot of media, they oftentimes just go to absolute extremes. It doesn't have to be like that. Like you can just really balance it out, so pay attention to the natural rhythms that you might be avoiding that kind of leads to that stress and burnout, mental fog. You got to be healthy, and that involves following some of the natural things that we should do for our biological selves, right? Having food that I guess comes from the earth rather than some ultra processed foods. That's just common sense though, right? Even like sleep cycles are like really important, because if you have it ruined by like a bunch of screens at night, come on man, there's got to be some long-term effects of that. It's not good, right? And then I think the most important thing for this one is going to be how productivity instead of balance, because we thrive off productivity. We don't know when it's time to actually rest. And when I mean rest, I'm talking about actually resting. I'm not talking about distracting yourselves with a bunch of substances or TV shows or whatever. I'm talking about actual rest. And even times when you feel like you want to rest, you're going to feel guilty for it. Do you know why? Because you've conditioned yourself that productivity is more important than actually finding balance between the two. And the funny thing is that sometimes in the times of deep rest is when you have the most insightful thoughts. The stuff that kind of makes you break your limits to some extent. And again, this is where I think we can learn a thing or two from animals, because they ain't got like 50 million distractions in front of them, where they live in a world where your attention is pretty much being sought after by multi-billion-dollar companies, where they're just, grabbing your attention left, right, and center, especially through the phone. Look at your phone. Everything requires your attention to work. So keep that in mind when you're on your phone sometimes, because everyone doom scrolls now. And so that actually might help you out a little bit. But I'd say all in all, just try to reconnect with some of the natural cycles that you're in. How do you do this, you might be asking? You know the answer. But if you want it in sort of layman's terms, then just be way more healthier. And you know what that means. You know what habits you should be stopping and you should start to be following. But additionally to that, I would say try to spend some more time outdoors. You gotta walk, stretch, and most importantly, what I would say is to breathe as well, because a lot of us, we don't breathe deeply. And I'll probably go into a different video based on this, because a lot of like anxiety and depression, it seems like it affects your breath big time. And breath is life. That's why if you ever do have anxiety, you're going to be breathing very, very fast paced. But if you're doing that whilst you're not actually doing any activity, over time that's going to accumulate, and you kind of get used to that, which I'll go into in the future video as well, because we're going to be diving into cellular memory and all of that stuff. But apart from that, go with your vibes, what feels right in the moment. And that's going to be hard to develop because you have to truly understand what you need at certain points. And sometimes that comes with dropping the ego a little bit. Sometimes that comes with exploring the nature of your own self. Sometimes you may not want to eat certain foods. Sometimes you may want to eat different kinds of foods. Explore that. Explore yourself and explore your own bodily capabilities. And now I'm going on a bit of a ramble, but be present as much as you can, okay? Just take that from this video, trust your instincts more, and take rest seriously. With that in mind, peace and blessings be to you all, and I'll see you in the next one.